She had everything on her side, and she still lost. That is how bad of a candidate she was. Hello everybody, I'm Mango Thunderslice, and today we're following up on the shenanigans in Washington, D.C., right from the Inspector General report by Horowitz that was released yesterday and all the reactions to it, as well as, of course, the purely coincidentally timed, of course, articles of impeachment being released against Trump, right, and so just going to be following up on that. So here we have the Office of the Inspector General report by Michael Horowitz that he's been working on for months. This was completed a couple months ago and now has been released to the public with all the redactions and whatnot. And yeah, it's a very long report. And basically, yeah, it goes and shows, I'm not going to read obviously the whole thing right here, but it shows that there were 17 critical errors made in the FISA application for surveillance of the Trump aides, Carter Page, and he was the first one, then there was George Papadopoulos. So, and of course, as we pointed out in the other videos, this was very much a fact-finding thing. It was limited to the Department of Justice and is not really about bringing criminal referrals. It's not in the scope of the Inspector General's authority, right? And so basically, but this came out, and of course, all the liberal media are saying that it's a nothing burger and it, basically exonerates the FBI and said that they were doing the right thing. But it definitely doesn't. There's a reason that their headlines today are all about Republican impeachment, blah, 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 nonsense. And that they're trying to, bury the actual substance of the Inspector General report. Because while it does essentially, one of Horowitz's conclusions was that the investigation of FISA applications were properly predicated, but they were riddled with errors. Essentially, that he says political bias didn't influence the process, but that it was nevertheless riddled with errors, and all of the information came directly from the Steele dossier, which was proven to be nonsense. So basically, Attorney General William Barr came out and released a statement. I'll read some of this. Basically, Attorney General William P. Barr issued the following statement yesterday. Quote, "Nothing is more important than the credibility and integrity of the FBI and the Department of Justice. That is why we must hold our investigators and prosecutors to the highest ethical standard and professional standards. The Inspector General's investigation has provided critical transparency and accountability, and his work is a credit to the Department of Justice. I would like to thank the Inspector General and his team. The Inspector General's report now makes clear that the FBI launched an intrusive investigation of a U.S. presidential campaign on the thinnest of suspicions that, in my view, were insufficient to justify the steps taken. It is also clear that from its inception, the evidence produced by the investigation was consistently exculpatory. Nevertheless, the investigation and surveillance was pushed forward for the duration of the campaign and deep into President Trump's administration. In the rush to obtain and maintain FISA surveillance of Trump campaign associates, FBI officials misled the FISA court, omitted critical exculpatory facts from their filings, and suppressed or ignored information negating the reliability of their principal source. The Inspector General found the explanations given for these actions unsatisfactory. While most of the misconduct identified by the Inspector General was committed in 2016 and 2017 by a small group of now former FBI officials, the malfeasance and misfeasance detailed in the Inspector General's report reflects a clear abuse of the FISA process." It continues, "FISA is an essential tool for the protection of the safety of the American people. The Department of Justice and the FBI are committed to taking whatever steps are necessary to rectify the abuses that occurred and ensure the integrity of the FISA process going forward. No one is more dismayed about the handling of these FISA applications than Director Wray. I have full confidence in Director Wray and his team at the FBI, as well as the thousands of dedicated line agents who work tirelessly to protect our country. I thank the Director for the comprehensive set of proposed reforms he is announcing today, and I look forward to working with him to implement these and any other appropriate measures. With respect to the DOJ personnel discussed in the report, the Department will follow all appropriate processes and procedures, including as to any potential disciplinary action." Right? And, again, it's these poor FBI agents at the rank and file level have to just sit by and watch this, pure corruption play out above their heads. I do have sympathy for them. And we'll see what Director Wray does about the situation. Of course, most of the people implicated in this report, McCabe, Comey, Brennan, Clapper, Strzok, Page, Bruce Orr, and Nellie Orr, they're all essentially already left the organization. So, this again is just a preamble to the actual disciplinary, actions and criminal referrals that'll come in a following report by Durham, right? And one of the things that's very interesting about this report, of course, for those of us who have actually been paying attention, not lost in, the conspiracy theories of Russiagate and all the hoax that entailed and was wasting all of our time for the last 3 years. Basically what it showed was that Hillary Clinton directly meddled in the election with the help of foreign powers, Russia, Ukraine, Australia, Italy. So at the close of this whole giant endless shenanigan, we find that the people, typical with the Democrats, they accuse the other side of being guilty of what they are. And again, as we're going to go further into this topic in this video, this isn't just about the Democrats. And as this proceeds to the Senate, this is where the dynamic is going to get a little more dicey. And, it's not so cut and dry. It's definitely not good versus evil when we're talking about the red team versus the blue team. And we have to have a consistent dedication to the truth as we proceed into this next phase. Whatever side you're on, if you're skeptical of Trump, you're supportive of Trump, it's going to get real dicey because, again, it wasn't just the left that, basically blew up Ukraine, for example. But anyway, read this article real quick from Zero Hedge. FISA report reveals Clinton meddled in 2016 election. If Russia spending $100,000 on Facebook ads constitutes election interference, and Donald Trump asking Ukraine to investigate the Bidens is too, then Hillary Clinton takes the cake when it comes to influence campaigns designed to harm a political opponent. Contained within Monday's FISA report by the DOJ Inspector General is the revelation that Fusion GPS, the firm paid by the Clinton campaign to produce the Steele dossier, was paying Steele to discuss his reporting with the media. This is on page 369 and elsewhere. Here's a quote from the report. Omitted information from Department Attorney Bruce Orr about Steele and his election reporting, including that 1. Steele's reporting was going to Clinton's presidential campaign and others, 2. Simpson was paying Steele to discuss his reporting with the media, and 3. Steele was desperate that Donald Trump not get elected and was passionate about him not being the U.S. president. And when did Steele talk with the media, which got him fired as an FBI source? September of 2016, roughly 6 weeks before the election. One of the more damaging articles to results from these meetings was authored by Yahoo News journalist Michael Isikoff, who said in an interview that he was invited by Fusion GPS to meet a secret source at a Washington restaurant. That secret source was none other than Christopher Steele, a former MI6 Russia expert who fed the Isikoff information for a September 23, 2016 article, which would have had far greater reach and impact coming from such a widely read media outlet versus $100,000 in Russian-bought Facebook ads. And of course, let's remember that the campaign itself for Hillary spent like $2 billion. Continuing, Isikoff's article claimed that former Trump campaign aide Carter Page, quote, has opened up private communications with senior Russian officials, including talks about the possible lifting of economic sanctions if the Republican nominee becomes president, end quote. This allegation was found by Special Counsel Robert Mueller by the Special Counsel Robert Mueller report to be false. Moreover, the FBI knew about it in December 2016, when DOJ No. 4 Bruce Orr told the agency as much. Another quote from the actual report. The Rule 13 letter also advised the court of additional information the FBI obtained after the first FISA application, but was not included in any of the renewal applications that further undermined the FBI's assessment that Steele was not a direct source of the Yahoo News disclosure. Specifically, the Rule 13 letter advised the court that in November 2016, or told the FBI that it was possible that Steele and Simpson, who hired Steele, met jointly with Yahoo News based on information or learned from Steele in late September 2016. In addition, the letter advised that in December 2016, Orr told the FBI that part of the work Simpson was paying Steele to do included speaking with the media. We found no evidence that the Crossfire Hurricane team or any FBI officials overseeing the investigation considered advising the court or Office of Inspector General this information at the time of the renewal applications. And the article continues, Steele told us that in September of 2016, her and Simpson gave an off-the-record briefing to a small number of journalists about his reporting. Reads page 165 of the FISA report, which says that Steele acknowledged that Yahoo News was identified in one of the court filings in the foreign litigation as being present. Put another way, Hillary Clinton paid Christopher Steele to feed information to the MSM in order to harm Donald Trump right before the 2016 election. Granted, there were intermediaries. The Clinton campaign paid law firm Perkins Coie, which paid Fusion GPS, which paid Steele. And if asked, we're guessing Clinton would claim she had no idea this happened, which, quite frankly, simply isn't plausible given the stakes. Whatever the case, the act of Simpson paying Steele to peddle fiction to the media for the purpose of harming Trump by itself constitutes blatant election meddling by every standard set by the left over the past 3 years. We're sure Hillary can explain that if and when she jumps into the 2020 race. Right, so again, it's by all the absolute flimsy, nonsensical standards that they've set over the last 3 years about collusion and obstruction and election meddling. Right, these old boomers are still so goddamn stupid that they think that the fact that a Russian IP address was detected, by and it wasn't even the CIA, it wasn't even the DNC, right? It was CrowdStrike. Again, it was a Ukrainian private firm that analyzed the DNC server and said, "Oh, we found access by a Russian IP address," right? That basically assuming that, these foreign computer experts just never understood how to use a VPN, right? They couldn't mask their IP address because they're just that intense, the Russian hackers, right? Again, the whole thing is so stupid to the people who knew anything at all about how the internet works, about how politics works, about, how much of a sham all of our elections have been. Until basically Trump came in and basically threw, the whole thing into the grinder, and basically now we have, the whole breakdown of the system, and it's not it's not going to stop here, right? This is not the end of this process, but hopefully it is the end of the Russiagate hoax conspiracy theory. Anyway, moving on, Durham, of course, is the real show to come. Right, and Durham is the one who has information about the CIA and about the foreign spies that were used in this. Again, one of the ways that the intelligence agencies get around the nominal limit that they can't spy on American citizens is, right, through the Five Eyes, right, are the foreign intelligence agencies, Australia, the UK, New Zealand, right, across the world, basically those are some of the main ones, but again, from Pakistan and across the European countries, all of these intelligence agencies are essentially just, beards worn by the CIA. They're just, they're affiliates of the same structure. And so, it's not illegal for, an Australian spy to spy on Americans. So the CIA just uses Australia to do its own spying. But, if it's not like, oh, yeah, the Australians were just so interested on their own basis of Trump, and that's why they did it. No, it was totally at the behest of the CIA. So here's another article on Zero Hedge. Inspector General Horowitz's long-awaited report says that lots of mistakes were made by the FBI. Brennan lied. Oh, yeah, that's the other thing, is that Brennan, former director of the CIA, basically perjured himself before Congress. Again, he also perjured himself when he said that the NSA doesn't wittingly surveil the American people, right? So he perjured himself then, perjured himself again by saying that the Steele dossier was not the fundamental basis of the Russiagate investigation, the Mueller investigation. This report shows that he absolutely lied and perjured himself before Congress, that it absolutely was the primary basis, and there's really nothing else that went into the report except for this bullshit Steele dossier. FBI Brennan lied, etc., but that spying on the Trump campaign and the whole Russiagate hoax was properly predicated, i.e. there was a basis for the FBI to open an investigation. But there are just two little problems. One, Horowitz did not have the necessary clearance to investigate U.S. intelligence agencies such as the CIA. He only had the authority to investigate the Department of Justice itself and its component parts such as the FBI. And two, he sure as shootin' didn't have the clearance necessary to investigate rogue Italian, British, or Australian intelligence services working with Brennan at all to create a false trail. Cough, George Papadopoulos and Carter Page, cough. U.S. Attorney John Durham, the guy Attorney General Barr tasked with investigating the origins of the Russiagate witch hunt, who has started a criminal prosecution of at least one deep stater, issued a statement today after the Horowitz report was released, putting Horowitz in his place. Quote, I have the utmost respect for the mission of the Office of Inspector General and the comprehensive work that went into the report prepared by Mr. Horowitz and his staff. However, our investigation is not limited to developing information from within components of the Justice Department. Our investigation has included developing information from other persons and entities both in the U.S. and outside the U.S. Based on the evidence collected to date, and while our investigation is ongoing, last month we advised the Inspector General that we do not agree with some of the report's conclusions as to predication and how the FBI case was opened. Right, so and this is kind of in response to a lot of media reports that were thrown out ahead of time by the communist imperial media, saying that Durham agrees with Horowitz, and Horowitz says that the FBI was properly predicated on starting their investigation. Durham comes out and says, no, that's wrong. You're totally wrong, and the one thing that you're definitely wrong about is Horowitz's conclusion about predication. He's essentially saying that in my report, that basically this whole thing was obviously not properly predicated and was tainted and was completely bullshit from the very beginning. And so, I mean, it's for government documents, that's almost as clear as it gets that he specifically is saying, hey, I definitely did not confirm that the FBI investigation was properly predicated, that, it clearly was not. Continuing with the article. So what does Durham know that Horowitz doesn't? Well, it appears that the head of the CIA, John Brennan, worked with foreign intelligence officers in Italy, Australia, and England to spy on foreign soil on Trump associates such as George Papadopoulos and Carter Page as a way to create false predicate for the whole Russiagate shit show. The FBI may not have known at first that the evidence, quote-unquote, of collusion with Russia was fake, but they kept pushing investigations long after they found out. Stay tuned. And so that's basically the situation with the report. Of course, they're pushing out the impeachment nonsense right now to try and distract from it and say that, oh, the FBI was exonerated. Again, you got to be lobotomized to believe that that's a correct summary of the narrative. But again, this is now the Inspector General report is out. We wait for Durham to lead the next swamp cleaning exercise. But at the same time, this impeachment thing is part of the same. It's all Ukraine, it's all Russia, it's all the deep state. All these things are merging together again as part of this apocalypse process. As everything gets revealed, you see the same old characters, the usual suspects who have been committing these things. And the usual suspects, again, is not just Democrats. It also includes Republicans. And especially with Ukraine, a country that the United States deep state overthrew in 2014, basically implicates a lot of people, some of which are still in power in the U.S. Congress and the government and whatnot. So this is an article also on Zero Hedge, and this was from the Conservative Treehouse, authored by a person named Sundance, I guess. And it's titled, Former Ukrainian Prosecutor Exposes Yovanovitch Perjury, George Kent's Motive to Impeach Trump. In a fantastic display of true investigative journalism, One American News journalist Chanel Rion tracked down Ukrainian witnesses as part of an exclusive OAN investigative series. The evidence being discovered dismantles the baseless Adam Schiff impeachment hoax and highlights many corrupt motives for U.S. politicians. Mrs. Ryan spoke with Ukrainian former Prosecutor General Yuri Lutsenko, who outlines how former Ambassador Marie Yovanovitch perjured herself before Congress. What is outlined in this interview is a problem for all D.C. politicians across both parties. The obviously corrupt influence efforts by U.S. Ambassador Yovanovitch, as outlined by Lutsenko, were not done independently. Senators from both parties participated in the influence process, and part of those influence priorities was exploiting the financial opportunities within Ukraine while simultaneously protecting Joe Biden and his family. This is where Senator John McCain and Senator Lindsey Graham were working with Marie Yovanovitch. Imagine what would happen if all the background information was to reach the general public. Thus the motive for Lindsey Graham currently working to bury it. You might remember George Kent and Bill Taylor testified together. It was evident months ago that U.S. charge d'affaires to Ukraine, Bill Taylor, was one of the current participants in the coup effort against President Trump. It was Taylor who engaged in carefully planned text messages with EU Ambassador Gordon Sondland to set up a narrative helpful to Adam Schiff's political coup effort. Bill Taylor was formerly U.S. Ambassador to Ukraine, 2006-2009, and later helped the Obama administration to design the laundry operation providing taxpayer financing to Ukraine in exchange for back-channel payments to U.S. politicians and their families. In November, Rudy Giuliani released a letter he sent to Senator Lindsey Graham outlining how Bill Taylor blocked visas for Ukrainian whistleblowers who were willing to testify to the corrupt financial scheme. Unfortunately, as we are now witnessing, Senator Lindsey Graham, along with dozens of U.S. senators currently serving, may very well have been recipients for money through the aforementioned laundry process. The visas are unlikely to get approval for congressional testimony or Senate impeachment trial witness testimony. U.S. senators write foreign aid policy, rules, and regulations, thereby creating the financing mechanisms to transmit U.S. funds. Those same U.S. senators then received a portion of the laundered funds back through their various institutes and business connections to the foreign government offices. In this example, Ukraine, example, Burisma to Biden. The U.S. State Department serves as a distribution network for the authorization of the money laundering by granting conflict waivers, approvals for financing, think Clinton Global Initiative, and permission slips for the payment of foreign money. The officials within the State Department take a cut of the overall payments through a system of indulgence fees, junkets, gifts, and expense payments to those with political oversight. If anyone gets too close to revealing the process, writ large, they become a target of the entire apparatus. President Trump was considered an existential threat to this entire process, hence our current political status with the ongoing coup. Here's a picture of McCain and Graham and Yovanovitch all sitting next to each other. It will be interesting to see how this plays out because, well, in reality, all of the U.S. senators in both parties are participating in the process for receiving taxpayer money and contributions from foreign governments. A CODL is a congressional delegation that takes trips to work out the payment terms and conditions of any changes in graft financing. This is why senators spend $20 million on a campaign to earn a job paying $350,000 a year. The quote-unquote institutes is where the real foreign money comes in. Billions paid by governments like China, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Ukraine, etc., etc. There are trillions at stake. Sidebar. Majority Leader Mitch McConnell holds the power over these members and the members of the Senate Intel Committee because McConnell decides who sits on what committee. As soon as a senator starts taking the bribes, lobbying funds, McConnell then has full control over that senator. This is how the system works. The McCain Institute is one of the obvious examples of the financing network, and that is the primary reason why Cindy McCain is such an outspoken critic of President Trump. In essence, President Trump is standing between her and her next diamond necklace, a dangerous place to be. So when we think about a Senate impeachment trial and we consider which senators will vote to impeach President Trump, it's not just a matter of Democrats versus Republicans. We need to look at the game of leverage and the standoff between those bribed senators who would prefer President Trump did not interfere in their process. McConnell has been advising President Trump which senators are most likely to need their sensibilities eased. As an example, President Trump met with Alaska Senator Lisa Murkowski in November. Senator Murkowski rakes in millions from the multinational oil and gas industry, and she ain't about to allow horrible Trump to lessen her bank account any more than Cindy McCain will give up her frequent shopper discounts at Tiffany's. Senator Lindsey Graham announced today that he will not request or facilitate any impeachment testimony that touches on the D.C. laundry system for a personal benefit, i.e. Ukraine example, specifically motivated by the need for all D.C. politicians to keep prying eyes away from the swamp's financial endeavors. And clicking through to that link, also an article from Conservative Treehouse. Essentially, Lindsey Graham appeared with Maria Bartiromo on Fox News and announced that he will take all appropriate efforts to stop the truth about Ukraine from being exposed in the Senate. And so basically, this is where, I was hoping for a second that they would call Adam Schiff as a witness and basically just, take this whole impeachment shenanigan and just blow it to smithereens by calling, Schiff as a witness, call Biden, call Hunter Biden, and just blow this whole thing to kingdom come. Right? But so pay close attention to the part where Graham says calling congressmen to testify is dangerous, and he will not call Adam Schiff because he does not want to go down this path. These comments by Senator Lindsey Graham are very self-serving. Why? Because Senator Graham participated in the exploitation of Ukraine for his own benefit. In essence, Graham is fearful that too much inquiry into what took place with Ukraine in 2014 through 2016 will expose his own participation and effort along with former Ambassador Marie Yovanovitch. Graham is attempting to end the impeachment effort because the underlying discoveries have the potential to expose the network of congressional influence agents, John McCain and Graham himself included, during any witness testimony. I'll go back to the original article to conclude. This open secret system of affluence and influence is how the intelligence apparatus gains such power. All of the DC participants are essentially beholden to the various U.S. intelligence services who are well aware of their endeavors. There's a ton of exposure here, blackmail, leverage, which allows the unelected officials within the CIA, FBI, and DOJ to hold power over the DC politicians. Hold this type of leverage long enough and the intelligence community then absorbs that power to enhance their self-belief of being more important than the system. Perhaps this corrupt sense of grandiosity is what we are seeing play out in how the intelligence apparatus views President Donald J. Trump as a risk to their importance. FUBAR. And so that's the video today. It's a good momentum going. Basically, the impeachment shenanigan has completely destroyed the ability of the Democrats to beat Trump in the general election in 2020, as the polls are showing. Hillary Clinton is suggesting that she might jump into the race, but this Inspector General report shows more than ever that she personally was guilty of using foreign powers to meddle in the election. She had everything on her side, and she still lost. That is how bad of a candidate she was. You can have all Satan and all the kingdoms of the world behind you, but if you don't actually go out to the swing states and talk to the people, at a certain point, they're just going to abandon you, no matter how heavy the propaganda is in the media. So that's my video today. We'll see where it goes from here, but keep an eye not just on the left, but also on those false agents on the right who are also equally guilty in the graft system of overthrowing countries around the world and exploiting taxpayer money for their own personal benefit. All right, this swamp is very deep, and we'll see where it goes. But again, we need to keep the light shining on all the guilty parties until the whole house of cards comes crashing down. So that's my video today. Hope you guys are having a good one, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.